All right.
All right.
Let me
I'll
share
go
my
off. I'll
screen.
go off.
Perfect. I'm going to start letting people in.
Right.
Okay.
Do it, darling.
Hi, everyone. Welcome in. Welcome in. We will get started in just a moment. And just a reminder to make sure that your microphone is off to start with. We'll have the section at the end where everybody can speak, but just wanted to remind everybody just to make sure that your microphone is on mute, just so we don't have any interference. Great. So let's go ahead and get started. We are on week 5 already. It's crazy. It's been so cool to get to share with you all and be here week after week, see everyone hear their stories and how they progress. And this week especially, I thought it was such a cool writing environment that I felt I had. And like all of you, I was working on the Sunday Indo and trying to brainstorm of a memory that I could use. And while I was doing that, I actually had some reflection on some really cool memories that I did have. And I realized just how lucky I was to have so many of these beautiful memories. This one here is from my time in California. I'm lucky enough to have been able to spend a bit of time in Northern California. As Karen knows, I have a bunch of family out there. So this picture on the left is from the Sierra Buttes, a camping trip that I went on, which was just so full of life and really amazingly beautiful scenery. And the picture on the right is from my mom's favorite beach, McClure's Beach in California. And I think going through this 20 minutes a day process, these aren't my favorite memories, but I think favorite is a really tough word because there are so many that I could choose from. And that was one of the biggest points of gratitude that I had this week while I was writing that down in my journal. Another memory is with friends. This is from a time where I went on an improv festival in Vancouver, had a bunch of friends, and this was right after one of our shows. It was a good show, but the after party might have been more fun than the show. And it was just such a great trip to have with friends and experience that with people. One of the things we did want to mention right off the bat with this Sunday Indo piece is that we want to make sure you all know it's not a competition in any sense of the word. This is purely if you did want to have the work published, to send it on to myself and Kev. But if you do not want it published, that is not, there's no pressure on this whatsoever. This is just an exercise to help us all kind of get our brains going and get it all of these exercises into this one piece. So again, we just want to make sure there's no pressure associated with, just so you all know. For this next section, we are going to be talking about art therapy, drawing, and how drawing can help inspire our writing brain. So you will need a piece of paper and a pen at the very least. Colored pencils are probably preferable, or something colorful to write with. But again, I just have a pen and a piece of paper with me today, so anything works. At the end of today, we'll be going over your Sunday Indo 5 points. So if you just want to keep that in mind, we have about 3 minutes per person that we will be able to bounce back and forth with Kev, get some feedback on your pieces, and help you to create that final draft version that then you can send along to myself and Kev for a chance to be published in the Sunday Independent. Again, there's no pressure on that as well. So we're going to be getting into a lot of really juicy stuff today, and I will not hold you up any longer. I'll go ahead and turn you over to Kevin to hear how his 30 years of experience has a lot of drawing associated with it.
Great, Emma. Great to see you all. Thanks for turning up. I think we have a very exciting session today. Yeah, look, it's about the travel memory, and you know, I know a couple of people thought, oh, well, I'm not too sure about, you know, the competition and that. Look, it's really an exercise. So at the end of this, you actually have something. There's nothing quite like it, and I need memories for my Sunday Indo column. So if we can get you in and you're interested and you want it, it serves everybody's purpose. Okay, so what I wanted to do was jump in straight away and see exactly what we're going to look at today, which is we're going to have a quick recap. And it was really fantastic last week. A lot of people who couldn't make it last week went onto the YouTube page, and I think they got a lot out of the mind maps, and I'm delighted. I mean, our job, myself and Emma, as you know, we do this out of a sort of a community spirit, and we want to give you something that at the end of the lockdown you can say, well, I have this, and I really think it's working. I'm getting great feedback from Phil, Niall, everybody really, to say, yeah, it's working well. So let's have a little wee look at just going over mind mapping very quickly. So you know what mind mapping is. It's sort of a way of developing ideas using the whole of the brain, different parts of the brain that just writing cursively cannot do. Or it's not as easily. You place a central theme, as you can see in the middle. So we have a little, I have an actual example here in the next slide. And mind map at the beginning of your session. So this is all very practical. Next slide shows you where to go next. You produce branches and have your colored. If you can have colored pencils, it does work better. And the next slide shows you how I've done this very simple. One keyword and one image, no more. Please discipline yourself to that. Tony Buzan, who I know, who wrote a foreword to one of my books, who created mind maps, he was very clear, colors and just one word and one image, because then you can see it at a glance. The whole point of this is you can catch it at a glance. And the next, and you use your different colors. You see, I've got 4 branches here. Each has a different color, each has a different picture and one word. That's all you need. It's really simple. And what are the benefits? Both sides of the brain. You've unedited thinking. It's a great way to start your session when you sit down before you put on the clock for 20 minutes. You get an overview. It stops you writing down a blind alley and, you know, creating a chapter or a feature. I know, like Claude, who I work with, you know, we do a feature, and unless you're very careful, you could write for half a day and then you have to tear it out. It doesn't quite fit the brief. And it's great for business. And you literally see your idea taking shape. And the next slide. And this is your meditation tape. So remember, on the YouTube site, there is a meditation tape, and you can download it and use it. It's again, as you're sitting at your desk, I think it's an incredible way to get into the practice and get you going. And it means that you won't necessarily have that sort of, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So there's lots of tools here to get you going and get you started. Okay, so let's go into what we're going to do this week, which is another thing which I think is highly useful. Actually, if you're going to do it as part of a therapeutic process, it's going to be done using a trained art therapist. What we're doing here is we're taking the kernel of the idea and we're using it in everyday use. If you feel that this could be something useful for you, there are trained art therapists, and as we go back out of lockdown, that may be something you'd like to explore. But this may be enough just using this, because it's this blend of art and psychology. It's essentially expressive writing without the words, if you like. just using images. And the next slide. What will art therapy do for you? Well, again, like expressive writing, it will increase your self-awareness. It will allow you to explore your emotions, and it may allow you to get in touch with unresolved conflict or trauma. And again, if you're doing this from a very gentle perspective, you know, your psyche is protecting you anyway. And so I don't think it's a case of unleashing any monsters, you know, because we live with our monsters day in, day out, whether we like it or not, and we treat them, you know, we cover them over or whatever we do with them. But I think this is a very gentle, safe way. And again, if you do feel you need to take this a stage further, then you can contact a trained art therapist and do an art therapy session course. And the next slide. What does this help you do when it comes to our writing? Well, it helps you to put you in process. But what is process? Well, I think process is, it's the journey and it's not the destination. Carl Rogers, you know, the giant who created client-centered therapy, you know, put it very clearly. The good life is a process. It's not a state of being, it's a direction, not a destination. So this will help the process of you keeping in touch with yourself, that inner world that we've been journaling about. And look at the leaps we've made since we started this just 5 weeks ago. It's incredible, actually, when I think how far we've all come. I include myself at the top of that list. And the next. The other thing it is, it's all about showing, really, all of this stuff is to show how unique you are. Carl Jung, another great giant, one of the giants, the shoe that fits one person pinches another. There's no one recipe for living that suits all cases. So here you are, instead of being a homogenized whole, we're encouraging and allowing each of you to become your own, to really look at the uniqueness as you. The uniqueness is often dismissed as we try to fit in with the crowd, or are told to fit in with the crowd. And as kids, I see it with my grandkids, you know, they are so unique, and you know, you have to just be careful that that's not bet out of them, you know, metaphorically and psychologically, spiritually even. And the next slide. I like, this is a bit like a Hulk slide. It's melodramatic. What does art therapy particularly do? The most important thing, I think, is it allows you to symbolize your feelings. You know, a symbol, as Jung said, we think in symbols. So you think of, you know, the great symbolic film of all time is probably Star Wars, which is based on Joseph Campbell's, you know, The Hero of a Thousand Faces. And he saw these archetypes, and you know, Darth Vader is, you know, the dark figure. The knight, the young foolish knight, is what's his name? The Luke Skywalker, of course. And then you have the clown, who is Han Solo, and you can see all of these symbols. So when we go inside, and as we do this little exercise today, you'll start to see how you actually symbolize things. And once expressed, these symbols, they can go into process. Process leads to resolution. So if you follow this, you can act out your blocks, and you can act out and see what your critic looks like, rather than just going around knowing that something's wrong. You can actually symbolize it on a page. How incredible is that? Incredibly deep and incredibly powerful. And the next slide. And how will this help our expressive writing? Well, I think this is really, really, really an important point. This is why I said it to you. If you sit down, so you go into your room, you sit at your desk, you take out your journal. Here's my journal. I write my day, and I'll show you here. Write the day, and then you put down whatever you need to do, your gratitude. Then you can play your tape. Then you can do your drawing. And yeah, what am I going to do? Mind map, and then a drawing. And slowly you're oiling, you're unblocking any of the little critics that are trying to keep us in place or don't think we should do this. So it's powerful to use all or any of these tools. We're giving you a toolbox, basically, and do as much of it as you can. And the next slide. The great thing about art therapy is no previous experience needed. You don't need any natural artistic ability, so please spare us. I was having, myself and Emma were doing this earlier as a run through, and I'm saying, "Oh, my writing's, my drawing's terrible." That's not the point, It doesn't matter. There's no rights or wrongs. You're just expressing yourself. This is not Leonardo da Vinci. It's allowing you to. What a great gift to give yourself, to just symbolize what's inside. And the next thing, so how to start? Well, you just pick an object, and it doesn't matter what the object is. So I'm looking out of my window, as you can see, and there's a guy walking down the street with a dog, and there's this incredible tree at the end. So I'm going to pick a tree, and it doesn't matter. It could be a car, it could be a bird. Matter. So we're picking a tree. So we'll go to the next slide. And what I want you to do is get a piece of paper, have your pens, and we're going to draw you as if you were a tree. What kind of tree will you be like? Now, that may sound, people sometimes chuckle when you come out with these, go, a tree, for heaven's sake. But just bear with me. There's actually quite a lot of sense and logic in this. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to just, don't pick up your pen yet. Now what you're going to do is very gently, I'm going to take you through a very simple meditative exercise, very similar to the one you can download. And I'll put this up online as well, so you can actually try this, download this and try this yourself. So we're just going to take 3 minutes, and you can close your eyes. You can stand up for this exercise if you so wish. I'm going to stand for it. And you're going to imagine, just before we do the exercise, just try the following. So what I'd like you to do is to sit or stand. You can turn off, if you're self-conscious, you can turn off the video so nobody can see you. And all I want you to do is just become aware of your feet. Become aware of your feet. And just get a sense of them, a place where it touches the ground. And just imagine if you were to put down roots, where would you like to put down roots? Don't allow your head to answer that. Don't allow the inner critic to mock you. If it does, just put it aside and say, yeah, sure. Come back and mock me in a couple of minutes' time. And where would you like to put down roots? If your body could put down roots in your retreat, just notice that and just go from the heels where the roots are going down. What sort of soil would you put your roots into? What sort of feeling is that soil? Where are you? And then just get a sense of your two as the trunk of the tree. Whereabouts is this trunk? Is it big? It could be a massive tree. Or you may just want to be a small, like a bonsai tree. I would try to let your unconscious, this body brain, inform you. And if you're surprised by what comes, that means you're doing it right. Not that you have to do it right, but surprise means that the unconscious is giving you something. And then if you come up and you put your hands on your rib cage and just breathe in and out, and just get a sense of breathing in and out and out. Now this is the branches, literally breathing in the carbon dioxide and breathing out the oxygen. We're doing it the other way around, but for the purposes of this, that's fine. And just notice, where are you breathing? Where are you? And again, just take that in and out. And then very, very, very gently nest at the top of a tree, and there's a bird in that nest. And that bird's just going to take off and it's going to fly. And it's going to fly around you. And it's just going to look out and just notice, where are you? Where is this tree as you look down? And again, let your imagination go wild. Let it go wild and be surprised. And then you can take a moment to sit or just reestablish yourself wherever you are. And take a couple of breaths. You can stretch out your arms as if they're the arms of the tree. Yawn. Stretch and yawn. And then very, very gently, you can come back and you can pick up your pen. And let's start to draw. You can put on your screen again if you so wish. And I just want you to have a little look at the image. So just go back one slide. So what I want you to do is just draw. And take a moment to do that. I'm going to draw it as well. Emma's going to draw it. We all do this exercise together. And again, just draw you as a tree. How big you are, where are you? And this has to be very short form. You don't have to take hours over this. This is very short, just to get yourself, just allow yourself to. And what position you are geographically. You can use different colors if that so helps. You can get the bird's eye view as well. And when you're ready, Em, you can move the slides on in your own. You get a sense of this picture, because this is a really important part to allow. And remember, nobody else is going to look at this. You put away any editorial. It has to be a great picture idea. And just get a sense of what, if you were a tree, how would you be embodied? Okay, now you can finish that off, take a moment to finish it off. And what I want you to do is, what do you see in the image you created? Take a moment to just look at your image. What do you see in it? What do you see of yourself in this image? Take a moment. You can jot it down. You can do a little mind map on it and put down, what do I see? As one branch, I see myself as this, I see myself as that, I see myself as struggling, I see myself as magnificent, whatever it is. Now, what do you think the image is telling you? And again, take a moment. You can jot this down on a little mind map at the bottom of the image. Draw a little mind map and say, okay, so what is this image telling me? What is it telling me? I'm a survivor. And if this image could talk, what would it say? One word will do. If you're going back to pure mind map thing, what word would say? What did your image say? Now, what we'll do is I'm just going to show you very briefly mine, and then Emma will, just so you can get a sense of, how I did it. There's no right or wrong way. You don't have to share yours. I'm sharing mine because I want to make sure you understand the process. That's the main thing. So this is what it came to me, and I was surprised, was an image of a mountain, and I was the tree right at the top, in sort of in the snow area. And somehow I'd survived this long, so it's really quite a powerful image, and it's right at the top of this mountain, and it's quite healthy. I don't know if Emma wanted to say anything here. Or...
Yeah, I noticed you included some wording as well in there.
Yeah, I put a small mind map down the bottom, and the three words I got was "hang on" is what it's taught me, and "survivor," and then is what I've done, and what it's telling me is to aspire, to keep on aspiring. It's a very positive message. So I'm surprised, and I'm enheartened by that.
Yeah.
So that's my little.
I was actually pretty surprised by mine too, if you're willing to hear me share. This is my image. It's a pretty feminine figure I found, but when I was drawing the tree, I almost prompted myself to put it by an ocean just because that's what I feel is strength. But in fact, I kept having this image of just rich soil. And I kept going back to there, and, you know, I wouldn't let myself just feed into the image. I kind of just let myself run with the soil. And it was really interesting because there was all these feelings of strength and nourishment. And that was pretty surprising as well.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, listen, if everyone wants to turn on their cameras, let's have a look, and let's bring you on, because what I want to do now is I want to give you the chance to try and see what image came for you, if you want to share your image, and then we'll look at the travel. But let me just go, before we go on there, we need to actually we need to go over the travel piece, don't we, Emma?
Yes, correct. Let me pull that up right now.
Quickly go over the exact points. So what we did last week was we mind mapped your favorite holiday memory. And all I want to talk about today is just the 5 branches. So the first one was, as you can see from the mind maps on the next slide, it's the date and the time. So if we go to the next slide, you will see that the next slide has best holiday memory, and the next slide is date and venue, and then the next slide is the company you were with, the next slide is the purpose of the trip, and the final slide is the best memory. So that's all we want to go through is those 5, and just to see what you came up with, and are you happy with that? And if you want to show us or discuss your little image as well, that's great. Chloe, I know you may be sort of having to rush off, and I hope your mum's birthday, so it's Chloe's mum's birthday today. So happy birthday. If you want to unmute for a second, Chloe, we will go with you first. And Emma's going to keep the clock on, so we all get our 3 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes, and so that means we'll be out of here. How did the birthday go?
Yeah, very good. We had, so it was her 50th birthday, so we had a birthday lunch, and then her brothers and sisters all drove out and beat the horn going past the house, so that was nice for her.
Right. So you're still isolating, Still
isolating, yeah. It's kind of hard to know what to be doing. I know
because in Dublin, so many people are just congregating now. Like it's
really,
yeah, like on the beach and everything. You know, it's like not congregating, but it's really, you can see the ice flow starting to melt. Anyway, look, I don't want to.
Yeah. I think.
Okay, so how did the image go? Do you want to share your image very briefly, or you don't have to? Now, you really don't have to.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I did it right at all. You can see.
Okay, so just give us a quick overview of what that meant to you, and what did you symbolize yourself as, and what did it mean? What did you get out of it? if any?
God, I don't. Yeah, I suppose for me, I don't know. I did the open branches, or they're kind of my arms. I suppose with this journaling, I've kind of found that the experience has made me become more open with my thoughts.
Okay. And how does that feel, being more open?
It feels good. Yeah, I think so. I just feel like the personal writing I wasn't doing as much of it as I would have liked before, and I think it's been helpful in that I'm kind of setting goals as well as I do it. I purchased a book, which I'm going to start as well. It's my life goals journal.
Okay.
So it just kind of you can bullet point different things. It asks you different questions like, what are you thinking about right now? And
Okay.
so I think it's kind of helpful as well, because it gives you a bit of structure about if you are kind of stuck for something to write about. At least then I can go to that, and it's asking me a question and I'll answer it, and then I'll kind of get stuck into the writing.
Yes, that's great. Well, share that, do share that. Drop me and Emma a link so we can, we can share any resources anybody has.
Yeah.
And do you want to just very briefly give me the 5 headings for your story, your travel?
Yeah, 2 seconds now. So is this just the location and the date?
Yes.
And
yes.
Oh yes, yeah. So the location was Tuscany. The date I traveled in June 2018. So sorry, now
And the purpose, I can talk you through it.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. So the purpose was I was doing a pilgrimage walk. I went with, the company was Camino Ways that I went with.
That means a strange.
Yeah. Yeah. So we, myself and Kevin, did a pilgrimage walk together back in June 2018. It was with Camino Ways, and we were doing it with another group of some kind of media, and then some were people who had actually booked the pilgrim walk as holiday makers. So yeah, it was an incredible experience, probably one of the best, the most life-changing, I would say, just because it was something I'd never done before, and we'd walked over 100 kilometers across, I'd say, about 5 or 6 days. So yeah.
And what was the one big life-changing thing you got out of it then?
The big life-changing thing, I have it written here. So it was, I say the highlight for me was just that sense of accomplishment when I reached the end. Yeah. I think I came into one of the Tuscan towns, and it was a medieval kind of setting, and I was walking through the wall, and I came to the wall and looked over, and there was just incredible views of, another town below, and there was violin music playing in the background, and it was just typical Italy.
Yeah. That's brilliant. Okay, well, listen, we probably used up our 3 minutes. Emma,
yeah, sorry.
No, thank you, and thank you for that. And it's great to hear that are you sticking to 20 minutes a day most days, or?
I am sometimes a little bit longer as well.
Okay, that's
brilliant. Good.
Okay,
yeah.
Emma, well, if you need to go, we understand, and thanks for turning up. But stay as long as you wish.
Great, thanks, Kev.
Naya, would you like to put yourself on? And it's great to see you.
How are you doing?
Good. We missed you last week, but I'm glad you're back, and I'm glad you got to catch up on the mind mapping. So what did maybe you'd want to tell us a little bit about the mind mapping and how that's working for you, and if you want to share the image, you can, or
Yeah, I like the idea of it beforehand, and I said to you that I've actually been mind mapping all week, but it wasn't actually anything to do with the writing. It was to do with work, because I had to. We have to come up with new ways of kind of opening and designing our building and our kind of services to do with new regulations now. So I was kind of just using, like what you said, no distractions, 20 minutes, half an hour to myself, and trying to just write down the points and just kind of mapping that way into what into for different ideas basically.
And how
So
did that
that
go for you? How did that work for you?
it was useful. Like, you know, you're I'm not sure where is the best place for me to do it, as in like location wise, but I just was in the room by myself and work, and then I kind of wandered around and I was kind of doing it as well, you know.
Yeah.
So it was but yeah, I had nobody else there, and I was just writing down my thoughts or whatever and just going off on one. So
And how did that help compared to how you'd have approached that?
discussion with someone else,
Okay. Okay.
just having my own kind of time to do it maybe. And usually I think I do a lot of my thinking when I'm trying to sleep. So when I get into bed and I'm lying down and that's when there's no distractions, and that's usually when I do think of loads of stuff. But I don't write it down obviously because I'm not trying to sleep or whatever. But it's I suppose that one, it was just more useful because it was during the day and I was doing it on purpose, kind of, you know.
Great. That's brilliant. So I'm really happy. Do you want to really briefly go through your holiday memory?
Oh yeah. Well, I only seen I seen the email there yesterday or whatever about the favorite holidays and stuff, or the memories. No, we've have a lot of them, but I've two down in particular. One was stargazing in that was in 2012, and it was kind of, I didn't know before I went there that that was the kind of thing to do. I thought it was just going to be kind of passing through, and I think it was kind of because it was a bit of a surprise. But it turns out it's like one of the best places in the world to go stargaze. It's like the second biggest science project in the world or something going on there. Like for
And was the sky literally a
yeah,
bejeweled?
yeah, it's because there's so little. There's so, you know, yeah, it's a high altitude. There's so little light pollution, and you know what I mean. There's so many things that make it right for there, and
And
you
what
go on a
was,
stargazing tour and stuff. And I suppose what I got out of it, I was always kind of interested in astronomy and stuff, but it's just it's just one of them things, you know. You just can't get your head around it. It's just
yeah.
so. It just makes you feel like you're just so we don't have a clue about anything. Like there's just so much stuff out there, you know. That's
Well,
what
I mean, I'm completely taken by, I don't know about anybody else. If you want to give a thumbs up, I'm completely taken by that story immediately.
mm,
So yeah, and there's a couple of other people giving the thumbs up. I don't think you need to go much further than that, to be honest.
mm.
The other one, very briefly, the other one.
The other one was when I was in Thailand, that I was traveling by myself, and I was only kind of I was kind of in the earlier part of me. Well, it was exactly 2 months or something, because I have to do a border run every 2 months. So I got an overnight train over to Laos, and I ended up just bumping into these. I ended up meeting someone on the train. She was just like I thought she was a local, but she was American, and basically we were crossing the border, and just because we were kind of talking and stuff like that, I had nowhere to stay, and I think she kind of felt sorry for me or something, because she was a few years older than me, and she said I could stay in her auntie's guest house, and you know, about an hour later, I'm at this house in the middle of nowhere, like with all these people from Laos, and they put me up, and I ended up being great friends with them for like even today. I'd still talk to them, you know. But
Wow.
it was good because it was just how it just went out of nothing, or how it just came out of
Yeah.
nothing, you know.
Well, what I would do there is I would personally go for the star one, because I think it's a great travel story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people would aspire to that. You know, that's something you could go for. But look, make up your own mind. And
Yeah.
I don't want to grab you. So, okay, so thank you for that. And I'm delighted that's doing so well for you.
Mm-hmm.
Bill,
Okay.
would you like to unmute? Phil, did you hear?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I did.
Okay, great. Okay, you're very welcome. Okay, how was the image for you? And I know you mind map. You also caught up on the mind mapping last week.
I did, yes, and I do. I find it very helpful. Mind mapping for a few years.
Okay, so it's not new.
I come back to it. So, I felt when you were doing the meditation with us, first of all, I could actually feel my legs becoming the trunk, and I didn't know what was going to happen, and I felt there'd be huge roots going down in the trunk, and so eventually I was a cherry blossom tree.
Wow.
And so staying with that image of how beautiful, and I associate cherry blossoms with built up areas because I've had cherry blossoms in gardens of houses that I lived in, but this one was out on a huge green space just by itself, and the two words came, and one was fragile, and blossom is very fragile. I'm sure the wind today took all the cherry blossoms away, but there was also the other word then was strong. So I just sat with fragile and strong, and what came was that it's okay to feel two qualities, two opposing qualities at the same time.
Yeah, that's yes, that's really interesting, and I think yes.
Because sometimes we think we have to be one or the other, or but it was a lovely. It was, cherry blossoms are extremely strong trees.
Yes.
And then they have these sort of gossamer blossoms, and I just felt that lovely quality of being strong and fragile at the same time, and I was just very grateful for experiencing that.
Well, thank you. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. That's fantastic. Do you want now? I know there's no competition here or anything. The 5 headline points. You don't have to at all.
No, when I went in and I listened to you talk, I was out walking and I was listening to you talking about, the mind mapping and the holiday, and it just came one particular holiday that sort of presented itself as having 2 parts to it, and there were 2 parts to it. And it was in the 90s. I think it was mid-90s, and I traveled to Chicago with a group of Irish people, and we were going over to be certified. I know in Ireland we call being certified is when you're put away in a mental home, but in Chicago we were receiving certification in this thing that I do called focusing. And I was so excited at meeting, this man that I just loved his work from what I had known of it. I'd never met him. So there was all of that, and we were all working on ourselves psychologically and going in and out and inside to the inner place. And then that was so freeing. And then there was the other part of it, which was, a name came. It was like holy days and holidays. And the holy days were when we were doing all this work. And then there was this French girl who was so sassy and so chic and so French, but she spoke English with a New York accent, and it was just hilarious. Well, New York idioms in her speech, French accent, but it was just amazing. And she took us to Chicago when it was over, when our work part of it was over. And of course we were all thinking of buses and No, she was. She ended up putting us into a limo, ordered a limo, and drove us, got us driven up to Chicago, and I just had the most amazing time.
Wow.
And the word that really came was the joy the group of us were feeling. Like, I never knew there was a place where that only sold pancakes. This was the Pancake HQ. I didn't know. In Ireland, there wasn't any at that time. And then she took us on a trip on a boat up the Michigan River in the middle of Chicago. And the buildings either side were like, colossal. And the beauty of them, and it was the architecture and these terrible drinks they gave us. They tasted awful. What they were really. But I remember thinking, they taste awful. But the fun of having them on the boat with this group of people who are all having cleared out our inner landscape, and we were all just so free. It was wonderful.
Well, that is fantastic. That is, you've said it beautifully. I was actually on that trip. We both got certified, and I remember it as well. It was one of the most times I've ever laughed.
Yes, it was pure joy.
It was pure joy. Well, listen, thank you for that, Phil.
This woman,
Thank you.
I really feel that it was this woman. She, for some reason, took this mad gang from Ireland of all ages and all sorts of idiocy, and she just brought us on this amazing trip.
You did. You got into the spirit. That's something I'll never forget. Well, listen, thank you. Both of those images and both of those memories are fantastic. So thank you for sharing that. More and share whatever you wish to share. Amazing memories so far.
So I discussed my memories last week. For some reason, one that struck me was this boat trip that we did on a chartered catamaran in the Croatian islands. And for some reason last week, it just really stuck out of my head. And it was funny because I met a friend of mine from the boat last week, and within 5 minutes of meeting him, without any prompt from me, he said, "Maura, do you remember that boat trip we took?" And I was like, that's hilarious, because I was just talking about it a few days ago in my writing class, and I'm writing a story about it right now. So it was strange, but I did write a little story about it. But yeah, I mean, it's so hard to choose one trip, because
it is. Well, is there any other trip that's in competition with that?
Oh, like 1,000.
Okay.
Yeah, too many trips. That's the problem. But that was just a phenomenal trip. That was like, yeah, it was a trip of dreams. But it's hard to pinpoint one that you like, because I've had even in last year I was in 14 different countries in 12 months. So it's hard to choose just an incredible memories. But it was definitely.
So you're happy to go with that. You're happy to go with the Croatian one.
Yeah, it's hard.
That's good. I mean, it doesn't have to stop. And what we'll do is at the end of this little roundup, and I'm aware that the time is ticking on, so we'll keep plowing on because I want to get everybody in. So let us know what. So I'm going to say, make a little sort of give you some ideas for next week. But tell me, how did the drawing go?
My drawing? Are you talking to me? Yeah?
Yes.
It was, I kind of had an image of like a psychedelic tree and then like a big rainbow river flowing beside it. I didn't have the right pens, but it was like basically, I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, very clear.
What it was just saying to me was to keep dreaming big and stay bright. And yeah, and that basically that my dreams are, valid, and keep chasing them. Okay.
Well, that sounds, so you enjoyed that exercise. That exercise gave you something.
Yeah, I do. I was telling Phil, I think I was speaking to her last week, and I was telling her I do a lot of watercoloring now, and I love the therapeutic side to it. I get so much from it. So
Well, Phil's quite an accomplished artist, so she keeps it very quiet. But
I know she was telling me I never knew.
she's accomplished in many areas, not just that. Okay, well, thanks for that, Maura. Thank you. Anne in New York, tell us where you are right now.
Hi, sorry, I was late. I was on a work call. I was listening to the sea lions going, ooh, 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 ooh.
Would you want to give us a quick tour of where you are and just tell
Yeah.
everybody where you are
This
exactly?
is the zoo in Central Park, and I have been holed up all day inside in the dark writing and doing Zoom calls. So I came out to switch gears and focus on this, and it's being in nature right now, well, always is good, but it's particularly soothing for the soul.
I don't want to sort of just pause there for a moment. Isn't this an incredible that I give out about technology, but if you look at some of the great things about it in lockdown, here we are talking to someone who's in Central Park, who we can, live. I mean, it is quite incredible, really. Okay, so very briefly now, how have you picked a holiday memory you want to share?
Yes, and
you don't necessarily have an image, do you? So we can just concentrate on the holiday.
Well, I mean, I didn't really do much more on the mind mapping than I did. I did it while we were on the session last week.
Okay, well,
So I didn't really. But what I did was I gave it thought. I started to write, and it was interesting. It was being in Paris, and it was a work trip, and it was not the work trip part, but it was the part that lent me, and on the Ile Saint-Louis, which is a lovely part in the center near Notre Dame, and the opportunity of, okay, I've got this wonderful opportunity to revisit old haunts, go to all the places I used to study there and live there. And then I thought, but there's a missing piece, and that was when I contacted you, and then we're both pretty spontaneous people, and so you manifested in short order, and there was you, me, Ile Saint-Louis, and it was fascinating. It was a going back. It was the word that I chose was sort of a recalibration. So you were the company, Ile Saint-Louis was the venue. It was a recalibration, really, because it was a sort of an attempt at any way to go back to the roots in order to understand a little bit more an informed future. And then I had another word, centered. So my memory is the chatting with you as we walked through, the various little streets. We'd stop for coffee, champagne or whatever, just taking it all in, chatting with the locals.
Was that the École Normale Supérieure as well?
Yeah, we went in, then we ended up in the courtyard of the place where I used to study, and it was like very, very interesting. We had a very profound conversation there. And, in this lockdown, all those elements are very to the fore for me, because, my family is thousands of miles away, and it's a sense of, it's just a lot of time to kind of, again, it's a recalibration. So I'm sort of thinking back to that memory, which has an uncanny relevance to this moment right now.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's brilliant. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Well, thank you for the exercise.
And you didn't get a chance to draw anything?
Well, I just drew on the call. Was I supposed to do more? I didn't. Oh wait, you see that?
Okay, got it. Yeah, that's fine.
I could go further. So I should really do more, draw a bit more.
No, it's really the drawing bit. I think you missed that. Joining us late. So,
I'll look at them.
Yeah, you'll look at them. Okay,
absolutely.
Brilliant.
Thanks. Thank you.
No problem. Ben, would you like to audio and share?
Hi, Kev. How are you?
How are you? Great. I'm sorry you got cut off last week by the lack of good broadband in the country.
That's right, the perils of trying to get on the internet down here. But I was able to catch up on YouTube, so that's a great facility. So thanks for putting them up there.
And is it a drag trawling through the hour-long program, or how does that go? How is it okay to do it catch up?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's the same as doing it live, except you don't have the stage fright at the end when you have to come on.
Very great. Okay, so tell us a bit about. Well, you can't see your image, unfortunately, but if you hear how that went.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, it's, I don't know, I guess drawing a tree, what kind of struck me most, I've been lucky enough to live in a few places where you're surrounded by a lot of nature, and what always strikes me about trees is how different they can look depending on the light, and anything in nature, you know, depending on the way the sunlight hits it and so on. And so drawing myself in that kind of scenario, I think as a writer, sometimes inspiration hitting you feels a bit like getting a nice shaft of sunlight in your face or something like that. So I drew a very leafy tree, which, you know, catches the light, which I think all writers would want to catch inspiration the way a forest catches the light. Something like that.
Okay. Sort of thing before?
Yeah, I like back in college and stuff like that, often in a lecture, especially a boring one, very unlike any lecture you would give us, Kev. You know, you find yourself doodling in the corner, just drawing things, and it's amazing actually, just that absent-minded, sometimes undirected drawing, how it allows other thoughts to come into your mind, you know, and sometimes the best ideas hit you when you're doing something else with your hands, you know.
But don't pull the wool over our eyes now, Ben. You know, we know you went to Trinity, and we know from normal people what people get up to in Trinity. So there was no, you know, we know what you were really up to.
The show is very unrepresentative.
But that's very interesting. So any final, from the point of view as a writer, of using these different parts of your brain to get you started, anything around that you just want to finally say? Because we've got just 2 more people to go, and then we're pretty much done in time, nearly.
Yeah, no, I thought just what I said already. I think just sometimes absent-mindedly drawing, just as you kind of put it yourself, Kev, it really helps. One thing I did want to say, because I know everyone is working on their travel memories, hoping maybe to get them published in your column. Obviously, I was lucky enough to have a piece published a couple of weeks back, and I just wanted to let you know that Sandra, my wife, was recognized down at the shop off the picture that appeared in the paper.
I don't believe it.
Somebody was like, "Oh, I read your husband's story." Yeah.
So she was the reader. You must track her down. We've got an award for
her. That's right. Yes, there are readers for your column down here in Waterford. So
Clodagh's sweating her breath. That's brilliant. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a quick word. Well, I'll just go to our last 2 people who, Karen is next. Well, actually, Karen is the last, isn't she? Yes. Well, thank you. Oh, no, Sebastian. Sorry, Sebastian. No, okay, we'll go with Karen and then we'll end with Sebastian. Thanks for that, Ben. And we'll talk at the end. Karen.
Just a quickie. This mind map was actually helping me coordinate a project for a sewing group at the senior center that I work at, or I visit with these seniors there and coordinate a sewing group. It helped me develop the project. So that's one thing. So thank you for that.
Just very briefly, in what way did it help you? In what particular way did it help you other than not doing a mind map?
Trying to develop a project for a group of close to between 10 and 20 people that everyone can participate in, trying to develop a theme that would be central, and then the method, you know, how are you going to give everybody a project and pieces of a project that might come together at the end. For an example, a quilt. how do you develop a quilt based on COVID, you know, the isolation and all.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
keeping it positive.
Yeah.
Because a bunch of seniors in isolation, they need something positive right now.
Right. Okay. Yes. So that worked. Well, I'm delighted to hear that.
Yeah. So thank you.
No problem.
This, I don't know if it's very visible. It's kind of pale.
Oh, yeah,
but
that's lovely. That's beautiful.
That's the tree. The only problem I had with that is I found that I kind of put the cart before the horse. I know what I want the tree to be.
Okay.
Versus just let it.
You a good writer, because that looked very accomplished, that tree. Are you a good drawer?
You know, through my career of teaching, I drew tremendous amounts because I was teaching human biology.
Okay.
So I would draw structures and, you know, the parts of the brain, whatever.
Yeah, so I don't want to talk over you, but one thing comes to where you saying you thought you may have just, you know, if you could do that exercise again, which of course you can, which is great, how would you change it, or would you change it?
Good question. I may start with, okay, you're going to draw a tree. Go ahead and start. Now, as you're drawing it, try to represent yourself in that tree.
Okay.
You know, something along those lines. But when I knew I was trying to draw me as the tree, I know what I want me to be, which kind of defeats the purpose of exploration.
Yes, and the spontaneousness. And that's a really good point. And I think Emma and myself had this discussion earlier where Emma said, I just wanted to draw this. So what will happen is, particularly if you're in any way polished at doing something, that default will kick in and it will take over. And what you have to actually do, the more accomplished you are, the worse it is. It's like me as a writer, you know, and I have a good brain, you know, and so I really got to put that aside because it will just run the show. Be like Niall, who's a great Muay Thai boxer. You know, if he was trying to do something else, you know, he's programmed to function in a way from years and years of training. So if he was trying to do something like free-form movement, it would be very difficult. You've got to throw it away and see what else is going to come. And that's not easy. So I think that's one of the things to take is the more childlike, the more you can be surprised, the better it will be.
Good point. Yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted to say about the travel piece before we move on to Sebastian? Because
I can just make it brief.
Okay.
It was teaching, and I was in charge of taking 6 students on my first flight to Alaska to meet my friend. We went from there, and the ultimate experience was sitting by the side by a lake at night where it gets dark very, very slowly in the summer, and watching the aurora.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, this is brilliant. Okay, so this is very much like Niles. You know, there's this wonder of nature, and I think everybody really loves that. I think that really, so maybe, you know, I'll come back. We're going to hear Sebastian, and then I want to give you a final thing about next week and what we're going to do with the stories for those who choose.
Good.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you.
Sebastian's. We kept the best till last.
So what would you like me to talk about?
Well, would you like to share how the drawing went for you?
Yeah, I can definitely do that. That's how it went.
Okay.
And then this is kind of huge roots that came down.
Oh.
And I can tell you why that is, because at the moment I'm on assignment for something and I'm having to kind of communicate with someone who's not quite grasping that I have to file some copy in about 48 hours. So I'm having to be honest, when you were doing the exercise, because this is probably why it's quite bare and simple, and probably even most a human-like tree was because no, I wasn't quite in the headspace.
Okay.
But I'm a little bit more at ease now, but I think probably, you know, this was very metaphorical, the kind of roots, these kind of column roots of like just shooting down and kind of being on, if you like.
Telling you that you need to be elsewhere, basically.
Sort of, yeah. Well, it's more just to get to arrange to actually talk to them, to get them on the record, kind of thing.
Okay.
So yeah, but maybe it was a little bit more like I wanted to be like this, but I didn't necessarily, like Karen mentioned earlier, but I was sort of but this was just sort of what came. So I don't necessarily, it may have been somewhere in between, but that's kind of what came through. Like, it wasn't, the rest of the image wasn't very strong, other than these huge columns just coming out of my feet.
Was that a surprise?
No, it felt very natural.
Okay. Okay.
Felt right.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now the story. I think we know the story, doesn't it? You just want to recap. You don't want to. Did another one come?
I've actually done two. So I did do mind maps before I started with the exercise. Although the ideas and how the kind of 200 words would be written and what would be playing out in the story was kind of going out throughout the entire week. It's a bit just filling in the blanks to some extent. There wasn't much kind of I felt need to either define or stretch out, because I kind of knew what I wanted to do and what it was going to look like. Not exactly what the words would look like. There was, once I got writing, obviously some shifting and shaping to try and get the setups and things like that for it.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not to say I couldn't see this being useful with other things, because I did it with actually because we were shooting a monologue speech for some sort of monologue challenge, and I actually used some of the expressive writing to find out what was going on in the particular speech. So I kind of tried to use it there.
Yes, that worked very well. We were doing this. Sebastian and me have been working this project where we're self-taping with each other and using our camera equipment. And Seb's a whiz kid technologically, so I owe him one for that. That was great. Okay, so do you want to run the second story by us? Just time, place, venue, purpose.
So yeah, where is it now? So so this is actually, I guess I had this in mind for your competition specifically. So right. This was actually this memory was yesterday, because our car is actually breaking down, so we're having to actually get a new one. So we had a travel memory of actually going outside of our 5K from Leixlip in Kildare to Rush in County Dublin. So the purpose of the journey was to actually check out the potential car we were going to get, but the date was actually at the end of lockdown, while we're still all restricted to the 5K. The venue was a rural part of County Dublin, with my mother, so she wanted me to check out the car with her. So at the end of it all, then we got like fish and chips, and actually we're like outside at the sea getting coffee and things like that. So and there was a kind of clever, what I think is a clever opening, or a sort of a slightly humorous opening, because obviously this isn't travel as such, even though it's obviously with all of us kind of locked in, it is very much travel now. So it was a slightly kind of, I suppose, haha meta kind of thing. Actually, I thought we had to do one and file it for now, so that's why I got two of them to show and send them on to, if you want to look.
Okay, well listen, what I'll do is we may talk about that on Monday. I know we have a session on Monday afternoon, and I think we'll talk about it then. And I'm thanks for your time, and thanks for your contribution, and thanks for all the feedback. It's great.
No worries.
We want to sort of wrap up now, don't we? We've gone a little bit over time, but not too bad. I think everybody got a great chance there, and I think everybody had something amazing to share, which was what it's all about. So, Emma, over to you.
Thank you. Definitely. Let me just bring
Lauder, just to say, Lauder's joined us. Sorry you couldn't make it that any earlier, Lauder, but you're very, very welcome. If you want to say hi. That's okay. Anyway, she's there. That's good. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, perfect. So just to let you know what's to come for week 6, we're going to do kind of a part 2 of this drawing therapy, and then using meditative drawing to unlock the imagination and help.
Which, just to say, it's really interesting. I think you'll find it very interesting. It's more like the little images that I was using here. So you just take it's more like a mandala, you know, the Buddhist mandala where you draw little shapes. And I don't know if you can see mine. That's the one. And it's fantastic. So you don't actually have to think, you're not drawing yourself. This is very different to drawing yourself as a dog, tree, car, or cat. This is taking shapes, and I'll tell you how, and it's a great meditation. It's fantastic. It really is fantastic.
Perfect. And then we also wanted to say, we have been enjoying this so much with you all, and are looking into opportunities to keep this continuing after the end of our session. So just wanted to put this out there. If you are interested in continuing, if there's anything in particular that you would want to see, please feel free to email me at emmac@becreative.ie, and I'll put this into an email as well. Just, we want to hear your feedback and any thoughts you have. Also, for your Indo stories, if you have those final drafts, if you want to email them to my email as well, and then I can forward those along to Kev. So that is available right there as well. Of course, all of this will be on YouTube, each session, as well as those meditative guides for your viewing convenience. And finally, just putting this up here again, just to let you know that this is a community outreach program, and all of it is supporting the Homeless in Dublin Order of Malta. So thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
And just one final thing before we all say our goodbyes. I just wanted to say that, you know, as regards, it would be great. Any story that you send in, if we can get it into, you know, into the malleable shape, as Clodagh knows, yes, Maura?
Sorry, Kevin, I just missed the first 2 minutes of the class. And is there a deadline on when to send the stories in?
Well, we need them by, it's always good to get a deadline, as you know, Maura. So if you don't have a deadline, we never do it. So it's basically that. So I think next week, if you want to, I think we will put down the deadline of, Emma, what do you think would be a good deadline to give me and you enough chance to read them and to have feedback next week, so we can say, yeah, this is great. Could you do this? Could you do that?
Yeah, if you want to send them to my email by Wednesday, this upcoming Wednesday, in that case, we have all of Thursday to kind of pick through. Wednesday morning would be perfect.
Let's say Wednesday, 12 p.m., noon.
I just have, so 12 p.m. on Wednesday. Just one other question. Is this a running column? Because I know the last, like it changes weekly, right? This 200-word article.
Yes.
It's not every week there's a 200. This is just, is it for this week?
Well, every week. So in my column, and we'll probably should have a PDF up, actually.
I read it.
Okay. So what we're doing is, during lockdown, because, you know, nobody's traveling, what we thought was that let's get readers stories. And some of the stories, you know, not surprisingly, some of them are not that well written. So it would be great to take, if anybody here is interested, we can get them into those shape. I think they'd make something like Niles immediately jumps off the page. Karen immediately jumps off the page. The warmth of Phil's, you know, that's the two-sidedness of that. Sebastian's is very touching when he went to Venice. Like, everybody's is amazing. Ben's has already been up there. So I you know, like, there's no reason why we shouldn't, you know, over the next 4 or 5 weeks, you know, if you're interested, to get them to a position where we can put them in and say, okay, you're a reader, you know, and you know, and there you go. But they have to be 200 words. We won't read them unless they're under 200
really
words.
Difficult to write a story in 200 words, I've discovered.
But Ben, you can pipe up on this, because you've done this and we do this every week.
Yeah, I think was I forget who said it now. I'd have to Google it, but you know, somebody like Wilde or someone said, you know, I'm sorry I wrote a long story. I didn't have time to write a short one. And yeah, I think getting the essence of something in 200 words is very, very difficult. And sometimes you just have to write something that's much longer and then try and cut it back, you know. But I certainly, in the first instance, I would just write what comes to you and get the memory all down, and then maybe try and cut it back afterward.
But the great thing is, if you're not interested in doing the sender, and I completely get that, you know, so you don't have to keep it to 200 words. Write it for yourself, you know. But if we're going to publish it, we can only accept 200 words or less. So that's just the way it is. And I personally think, as Ben said, you know, there's something really beautiful about getting something condensed. It's like refining things, alchemy to gold. Anyway, any other questions before we say our fond good nights tonight? It's only 9:15. We got through a hell of a lot tonight, and I just have to say I'm really, really enjoying. Are people generally interested in continuing, or how do they feel?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Okay, that's great. Ben, Clodagh, and Phil have not even responded. That's outrageous. I mean, it's just shocking.
Of course, I'd love to continue.
Me too, Kevin.
We always have to get the
Me
boot
too.
in. Okay. Well, we'll think of something. It's just the format, really. So we'll talk about it. So have a think about what you'd like, and maybe it's just continue just to be creative, but not and just feature your stories, because I just love the idea of normal people. Because Normal People is this incredible Lenny Abrahamson show on RTV, and it's a joke, because the normal people are anything but normal, which is actually everybody. So none of us are normal. So that's the joke, you know. So we will lots of love until next week, and great to see you, and have a wonderful weekend, and we'll look forward to getting your feedback during the week.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Kay.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.